I recently was given the opportunity to appear on the Dan Abrams show. You guys, if you don't know, Dan Abrams is a well known legal analyst. He's been around probably, as long as I've been conscious of cable news, he has been around on TV, talking about legal issues, whether it's at ABC. I think he was at GMA for a while, Good Morning America. He has a podcast on Sirius XM. And now he hosts a show on News Nation. And I was invited on the Dan Abrams show. It's sort of a mix of politics and law. And he wanted me on to talk about Michelle Fields, who is one of the names that is being floated around and really advocated for by, in particular, South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn. Well, Michelle Fields is Clyburn's choice for Supreme Court justice. Now, we know that President Biden has said he's going to choose not just a woman of color, but an African-American woman to serve on the Supreme Court, which would be incredibly historic. So Michelle Fields is at the top of the list right now. Well, union leaders like Sarah Nelson and other unions, public sector worker union members and leaders, as well as progressive organizations like Our Revolution, have said, hey, hang on a second. Michelle Fields is an interesting choice. She has a very interesting background. Maybe we should take a pause and think about what it means to have Michelle Fields on the Supreme Court, which of course happens. But in every situation, whenever we have nominations to the Supreme Court, there are people out there saying, hold up, what about this? What about this paper that they wrote in law school? What about this court case that they argued when they were attorneys? What about, this association that they've had, in their social circles? That kind of stuff and personal history of, Clarence Thomas, notably so. Michelle Fields has been a corporate attorney. She was a corporate attorney. She was a partner at a law firm. And what I'm going to do right now is that's the setup for this clip. You can watch me discuss this with Dan Abrams. Dan Abrams is definitely more moderate. He openly says so. And he thinks that Michelle Fields, who is being supported in a bipartisan way, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina said that he would support her. He thinks that she is the smartest pick to get through the Supreme Court. My perspective is very different, but you'll hear that. But one thing I will add to it is, why do we make it about bipartisanship when Democrats nominate Supreme Court justices? We have the Senate. Why? We staged a fit for sure, but it's only a bipartisan game when we're in control. And I find that quite funny. So let's roll this clip.
Now that President Biden has promised a black woman on the Supreme Court, there is a relatively short list of top candidates for the job. But for some on the left, a highly qualified, left-leaning black woman is still not enough. One of the leading candidates is federal judge J. Michelle Childs, who has served for 11 years on the U.S. District Court of South Carolina and was recently nominated to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. But now she's drawing heat from some left-wing activists concerned that she isn't liberal enough. They're upset that she was, a successful practicing lawyer who made money representing clients at a prestigious law firm. The way successful lawyers do. Pro-labor activists are fretting about her past work at a corporate law firm whose clients include employers accused of discrimination and labor law violations. The activists say the work is disqualifying. Yes, they believe representing corporate clients should disqualify a lawyer from sitting on the Supreme Court. Joseph G. Varghese, the executive director of Our Revolution, a group founded by Bernie Sanders, has been one of Childs' most vocal opponents, tweeting, quote, Joe Biden vowed to be the most pro-union ever. It's imperative he keep this pledge by nominating a pro-union justice. J. Michelle Childs is anything but. Workers do not need another anti-labor justice actively opposing the very protections POTUS promised to uphold and expand. Representatives for labor groups, including the General Counsel for the American Federation of Government Employees and the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, have also come out against Childs, arguing that she is anti-union. In addition, some on the far left have criticized Childs' rulings in criminal justice cases. They argue that she's too tough on criminals, pointing to a series of rulings, some where she was later overturned by a higher court, in which she denied or rejected the motions of convicted felons who argued they were being treated too harshly. But the primary argument against Childs is that because she once worked at a law firm and represented employers, that she can't possibly adjudicate those types of employment cases fairly. So I guess that would mean anyone who's ever been a criminal defense lawyer would have to be excluded from consideration because they represented criminals. I mean, who wants a criminal lover on the court, right? It just seems like nothing is pure enough for some on the far left. But maybe the scary thing to them is that Judge Childs might even have some bipartisan support, which must be really bad, which must mean she's the devil. Senator Lindsey Graham has been a prominent supporter of Childs' candidacy. Joining us now is Nomiki Konst. She's the director of Matriarch, a progressive group which supports working-class women running for office, and she opposes Judge Childs. Nomiki, thank you so much for coming on the show. All right, I've been ranting here for a bit, so let you go. What am I getting wrong here?
Well, I mean, first off, thanks for having me, Dan. Yeah, I think we could both agree that courts evolve with the times, whether it's resistance from choices that from the far right who refused to evolve with the times, like Amy Coney Barrett or Clarence Thomas. All of those had to deal with social issues related to gender mostly. Well, right now we're in a moment where big business has gone out of control. There have been record profits during this COVID pandemic. You've seen CEOs make more money than ever. And of course, workers are really suffering under these circumstances. But in particular, when you look at labor, the labor force, it is majority made up of women of color. And so when Joe Biden says he's going to choose an African-American woman to serve on this court as the most pro-union president ever, you'd think that he would choose one of the many other women who've been presented who've been very good on issues when it comes to labor, representing most women of color in this country, frontline workers in particular. Unfortunately, Childs, while she has an impressive career, 23 out of the 25 cases that were registered with Bloomberg Law from when she was at when she was a partner at Nexon, Pruitt, Jacobs, and Pollard, she was representing employers against employees in discrimination cases, in union busting cases. I don't know if that's exactly the type of choice, that represents these times.
Well, let me ask you this. So here's my concern. My concern is once you start punishing a nominee for the clients they represent, and I say this across the board evenly. I mean, I don't like it when the right does this. They find some little case that someone argued and they say, aha, see, this person's a bad person because they took a case. She was a lawyer. She worked at a big law firm. She was really successful. She made a lot of money doing it by representing clients, which is what lawyers do. And now it sounds like what you're saying is, and that, of course, should be held against her.
Well, it's not like lawyers are forced to take every case presented before them. You know this very well. She has a choice. She has a choice which law firm she works for. Is it a labor law firm? Is it one that deals with employee discrimination? Or unfortunately, she chose cases representing big business and union busting. And, in cases she lost where the employees won when facing discrimination time and time again. So this is a consequence of choices in life. And I think if you're going to serve in the highest court of land, you should represent the times. And this is a time when workers really don't have enough power in the workplace.
What do you make of my example about a criminal defense lawyer? Using your theory, using your philosophy here, it would seem that I don't think any criminal defense lawyer, anyone who's ever represented a criminal defendant, should be considered for the court because the criminal defense lawyers are typically representing people who are guilty. Not always, but typically. They're representing people who are guilty, and they're giving them their day in court, right? They're representing them. And according to you, they're choosing to represent these people who are criminals. How could any criminal defense lawyer ever be considered for any judgeship using that? Right.
Well, I think we know that our criminal justice system is severely broken, and how many of those criminals are coming from communities that have been targeted with outdated criminal justice laws. Well, it does have something to do with it because these are individuals who've been born into circumstances where they've been targeted and often don't have the resources. Big business is not some sort of community that doesn't have the resources. She has a choice. She made a choice to go to a law firm. She probably made a significant amount of money and got a lot of experience representing business. But when you're serving, the majority of criminals or or those who are tried as criminals in our legal system right now are not coming from the wealthiest communities. There's obviously some exceptions, but they're mainly coming from communities of color with outdated criminal justice laws.
Wait, but you've just justified sort of committing crimes, right? And I hear you, because I'm not suggesting that you have.
How many
you
of those
basically told me
crimes-
that everyone who's charged with a crime, we have to look at why they committed that crime because of this problem and that problem, and as a result,
committed that crime.
You can totally understand why any lawyer would represent them because, of course, it must not be their fault. It must be the fault of their upbringing, et cetera. And I understand that that's an argument to make.
What is the crime on the books? What is distinguishing what a crime is? We know that in New York, there used to be stop and frisk. That is no longer something that is used. You know, the easy.
Right.
There
are statutes, right?
Yes, exactly.
There are statutes. And if you violate a statute and you commit a crime, you get arrested. I mean, come on. That part of it isn't particularly complicated. Big business can write their own
statutes. Here's the difference. You know, if you're growing up in the South Bronx, you're getting targeted in a completely different way than if you're growing up in Beverly Hills.
Right. Again, the wide swath of presumptions of everyone who's charged with crimes must have been targeted if they live in the South Bronx. That it must be that anyone this is the problem, in my view, more broadly with absolutes, right? And that's my fundamental problem with what we're talking about here, which is this lack of ability to say, okay, maybe this is a candidate who can actually get bipartisan support. Maybe this is a candidate we're definitely left-leaning, but can bring people to say, okay, this is not going to be as divisive a candidate as Joe Biden could possibly pick. And that's why, for me, as someone, and I say this, by the way, I say this to people on the right as well, that I look for candidates who are more towards the middle, that I like Supreme Court justices, I like political candidates, et cetera. And that's more of a reflection of America. And it sounds like, again, and maybe this is an unfair characterization, so I'll let you respond. It sounds like you're kind of trying to pull Biden much further to the left, even though the country's not there.
I would firmly disagree. I think that the majority of Americans in this country are workers who want to be protected. I think the majority of Americans in this country are worried about their paycheck and the ability to survive when labor laws are under attack. What she represents is big business, which the majority of Americans on the right and the left probably don't side with. She has worked for big business, a law firm which goes against the PRO Act, which is incredibly popular and needed while labor is weaker than ever. This is not a conversation over social issues. This is a conversation over whether or not we have a court that represents big business or the American people. Big business gets to write their own laws. They get to hire whatever attorneys they probably want, the best in the business. Most individuals in this country do not have that opportunity. Most individuals in this country don't have a say or a lobby pushing for a certain judge. And for President Biden right now, when you look at the lower courts, he actually has sided with the workers when it comes to his nomination. So this would be really working against his legacy. And frankly, I'm concerned that if business can just buy the courts, what are we left as a country?
Again, business buying the courts. I mean, but you mean they'd have to be buying Biden? Of course they're going to be lobbying for it, but then they're going to be buying Biden, right? So anyway, look, but here's what's good about this is you are clearly super smart and this is super interesting. And that's why we liked having you on the show. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was a good debate.